All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice Cultural Network. I'm your host, Cameron Honesty, joined as always by Cannon Torres. And today we have one of my fellow lead writers at the College Wires, part of USA Sports, Taylor Jones, lead writer for Auburn Wire. Obviously, the reason we're having Taylor on today is because A&M opens the SEC play for them on a bye week last week against the Auburn Tigers in Kyle Field. This is a game that I think is very critical for the Aggies. You don't want to get off to a slow start, especially after defeating Notre Dame the way you did, and very exciting back and forth contest. Obviously, the passing game was electric. This is basically a brand new A&M team compared to last year, where you go into every game now thinking, well, we can win through the air instead of we have to establish the run and we have to do all these things perfectly to have a chance. Now you match up pretty well against every team left on your schedule, but I think all of us, obviously Taylor was covering the game, that, outside John Mateer now, we're finding out he broke his hand, Oklahoma's quarterback, and got surgery today. I mean, that's one tough SOB if I've saved so myself, finish the game that way. But Auburn is not an easy team to beat. They had a chance to win that game. Obviously, some mistakes late, missed opportunities by quarterback Jackson Arnold. Obviously, there was, I think, that deep pass to Cam Coleman that would have resulted in a touchdown. Just a lot of mistakes that prevented them from pulling off the upset win. But honestly, from what I've seen, defensively, it's a pretty solid team outside. I think the secondary is a little shaky. I did hear there was an injury that we'll get into, potentially one of their starting quarterbacks that might not play in the game. But overall, Taylor, what were your thoughts on the loss to Oklahoma? And do you think Auburn's close to really kind of breaking through and fixing these mistakes and potentially pulling off the upset this weekend?
It was a loss that was pretty tough. Of course, the discussion of the officiating is still very hot here in this part of the state, and I guess really everywhere in the SEC. I saw a clip of a podcast, McCready and Siskey, and AJ McCarron was a guest, and AJ McCarron of all people said that Auburn got hosed. So that's I feel like that's kind of how you know that this is a real deal. This was a pretty bad thing. But outside of that, with Auburn still having a chance to win, I feel like it's just one of those situations where we saw it a little bit last year where they just have to get out of their own way. The offensive line was, shaky, of course. I think Pro Football Focus and a few others had 9 sacks. Oklahoma credits 10. Either way, it's a lot. And I think I counted 23 pressures as well too, and that's not great in one game. Penalties weren't that great either. I think I counted 12. They didn't all count, of course, but 12 penalties that were offensive line related. So that's an issue that we kind of thought was going to be a strength going into the beginning of the year, because we have Dylan Wade, who had moved around. I think he had gotten over 100 snaps at 3 different positions last year. Bringing a guy from USC, Mason Murphy, we bring in a guy from Virginia Tech, and Xavier Chaplin. Center Connor Liu, who's been proven to be a pretty solid center, and then Jeremiah Wright coming back for his 5th year too. So we thought, okay, we're pretty solid at this offensive line, and then they get challenged at Oklahoma. So I feel like there's a little bit more question there, whether it be pass protection, whether it be schemes, whether it just be miscommunication, whatever. I kind of leave that to the question too. And then we really got to see one of the weaknesses of Jackson Arnold, and that was holding on to the football for too long. And, back in the summer, I can't remember how deep in the summer, I think it was right after Hugh Freeze was getting criticized for his golf game. There was a video going around of him throwing his visor down, mad at Jackson Arnold, and everybody was like, oh, Jackson Arnold may not be the quarterback that Auburn wanted, and Hugh Freeze is already upset, and there's a chance that he may not even win the job. And I wasn't looking at Hugh Freeze in that video. I was watching Jackson Arnold hold on to the ball. Like, even me, like, it wasn't even a game. It was a video of a practice that I'm sure it happened a few hours before. I'm like, throw the ball. And we saw that again on Saturday too. So, defensively again, got to watch the passing game, the run game. Stopping the run is still really good. Something I've really enjoyed watching out of this team so far, but the passing game, again, a little shaky there. Really both sides of the ball. If you look at the passing game, that's going to be the answer of some concerns I have now of this team watching them play 4 games.
Yeah, definitely. I when I first came into this season, I definitely thought Auburn's offensive line had vastly improved, especially over the offseason. You saw them bring in Xavier Chaplin, who I thought was one of the best guards or tackles out of the portal. But I've just seen all over social media and all over certain boards that it's just how can they even compete with these defensive lines if they're just going to hold the ball for that long? And uh, from what it seems like so far, Jackson Arnold has kind of made the first read and then not exactly known to kind of look onto the second one and follow his progressions from there. So I get why Hugh Freeze is in these viral videos of throwing his hat down, because that's really what every coach is going to do in that situation. And it's just uh, the fact of the matter that it was just so there was a video coming out about Auburn for that. So it was just the pick of the day. And I'm sure that after last week, when John Mateer and it was the whole homecoming of Jackson Arnold back to Norman, where's the headspace that kind of Auburn fans are looking towards the rest of the season, or at least the next couple of games?
I feel like if Auburn had not performed the way they did against Baylor in the season opener, it would be about what it's been the last 5 years, and that's, oh no, here we go, another 5-7 year, another 4-8, whatever the case is. But I think that there's a little bit of hope somewhere because of what they saw against Baylor, and they do know that, like looking ahead to the rest of the season, you've got Kentucky coming up. You feel like that's a winnable game. Vanderbilt, who really knows? Auburn struggled with them last year, but who really knows what that's going to be like? Missouri, could be another winnable game. And you feel like you've got the talent around, especially on defense, that there's a little bit of hope that they can get over that hump of not losing 7 games for the 5th year in a row. But there is, still a little concern on the offense as far as, you've got probably one of the best receiving corps in the nation, but you have to get them the ball. And I think that's probably the biggest concern right now is we've got to watch opposing pass rushers and what if Jackson Arnold can get to his reads a little quicker.
Yeah, we definitely saw last year. I think the general consensus was this offense for Auburn wasn't necessarily bad. It was just they kept turning the ball over and over. They kept it was not sustaining drives, because if they had not had those costly turnovers, the Oklahoma game from last year comes to mind.
Right.
Like it was just a whole lot of just turnover mess after turnover mess. And the hope was that Jackson Arnold coming in would be able to fix a couple of those. But this is a team now that when I still look at their defense, and they're, as of right now, I think they're still sitting top 25 in opponents' points per game, sitting in the middle teens. So this is a defense that can compete with the rest of the SEC in terms of limiting opposing offenses. And definitely from what I've seen so far, I really haven't seen them not score outside of the red zone this year. Is that necessarily true, or am I just getting all of my facts wrong?
Yeah, that's another thing that's improved with this Auburn team too, is the red zone was not that great last year scoring. And you bring up the the other offense too, and that Oklahoma game kind of goes back to Peyton Thorne. I don't know if it was a system thing or if he was just nervous or what the deal was, but it's one thing that I am thankful for, if there is anything like any silver lining to Jackson Arnold holding on to the ball longer than he should, is that he's not making a lot of bad decisions like Peyton Thorne did. And you go back to the turnovers, he's either, doesn't remember the route, or he's, you saw, I think it was in the Oklahoma game. It may not have been the interception that was returned by Kip Lewis, a guy that's going to be in our nightmares forever, because he had the returned interception last year and he led Oklahoma in tackles last game. So he's a guy that I don't even know what year he is, but I'm glad that we don't have to see him next year, at least, or for a few years, because Kip Lewis has just been a Auburn killer. But there would be times where he would just throw the ball and there would be an interception, or it would, be, you could tell that he had a route in mind and the receiver was going the other way. And you could kind of see last year in that Oklahoma game, like visibly he and Hugh Freeze, going back and forth on the sideline. There seemed to be some confusion about what was going on. And so that is, a couple things that have gotten better. I think there were a couple long passes. I know Cam Coleman's first touchdown against South Alabama was one that I remember that he kind of threw from over 30 yards. But yeah, it's been relatively close. Jackson Arnold, I think, he's only gotten over 200 yards twice this year in passing game. He didn't do it against Baylor, and he didn't do it against South Alabama just because I'm guessing the running game just really took over. But that is another aspect that has gotten better. If there's a silver lining of anything, is that red zone scoring has gotten better, and the decision making has kind of shifted to another area. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So that was kind of a great back and forth, guys. It's really going to prepare for a game that, I think both teams want to establish the run early. I think that Auburn is going to do the same. They don't want to go out there and go bombs away because they feel like, there's some leakage in Texas A&M secondary, which we will start with Will Lee. There's senior cornerback who, again, I'm not here to trash, we're not here to do that. That's not our job, but he has struggled in coverage. And I think a lot of that has to do with sophomore Des Ricks, who I've been talking about, me and Ken have been talking about throughout the last 2 months, how great he's been. He's lived up to the hype. He has barely been targeted for a great reason. He's made a couple deflections. He made one of the bigger plays against Notre Dame. When you're not throwing to one guy, you're going to throw to the other guy. And so you're going to try to put your best receiver on him. And to be honest, Lee's been kind of interesting to watch because he made a key play at the goal line to prevent a Notre Dame touchdown on a deflection. But there were some big plays where he just couldn't keep up and he was just getting exposed by bigger receivers. And in my opinion, I think it's going to slow down. I think he is going to regain because he's got a lot on the line, right? You got to think of these guys who are seniors who are trying to get to the NFL. All this tape matters. So especially against competition like Cam Coleman, like Eric Singleton, who they're going to try to put on him. Look, that's going to be the matchup of the day, in my opinion, outside of, A&M's defensive tackles against Auburn's run game and trying to contain Jackson Arnold from shredding you with his legs. Because we do know that when we watch Baylor, not going to compare Baylor's defense to A&M's. That was also an opening game, and not everybody's kind of ready to play football yet. But Arnold, when he gets an open seam, he's off, and he's hard to take down. He's a bigger guy. He's very tough. He's confident. We saw that a little bit with Oklahoma, but he's really ramped it up. And I think a lot of that personally had to do with the competition and all the talk from all of us in sports media saying, well, is he going to be the guy because of this video and because, they may play 3 quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. And I think a former 5-star quarterback is like, no, I'm the guy, and I'm going to show you why I'm the guy. But like you told me after the game, he kind of holds that ball on like, well, I forget what you said, but I kind of looked at it like holding a newborn. Like, don't drop him.
Yeah, it's a precious jewel.
Yeah,
you can't let it go. You can't let it go.
But yeah, it's one of those situations where A&M just can't kill themselves in this game. They can't allow Auburn to do what they want. They got to force Auburn to they got to force Jackson Arnold to make good passes. They can't, because he knows, and he's going to see the film all week of. You overthrow Cam Coleman on that deep route. Like, those are easy passes. You just got to set your feet and go. Marcel Reed on the other side missed a couple of those deep passes this year. It's not foreign for quarterbacks to miss those go balls when that guy's wide open because he get too much juice. We all remember from high school, even your quarterback's just like, oh, I got him. Okay, no. Like, that's just how it works sometimes. But yeah, it's a very hard game to predict, in my opinion, right now, because I'm of the ilk of if you have a bye week after a big win, it can either go down one or the other road. Is that you're really hyped, you're getting all this positive talk, including from us at Aggies Wire, including from us from this podcast, including everybody else who covers A&M. It's like, wow, they finally did the thing. They finally beat the ranked team on the road. They've ended the curse, blah, blah, blah. But what can they do now? I see all these people in my mentions and stuff all the time. Well, why don't you focus on Auburn? Okay, it's not our job. We have to do everything else. But I understand that, right? I understand the whole focus on the game ahead because we've seen this story before. And for A&M, it's basically A&M's defense against Auburn's offense. That's really the entire game. That sounds basic, but it's not. Because I would say last year, going in every game for A&M, is Marcel Reed going to be accurate? is the run game going to get going? Because we don't trust these wide receivers. They're not fast enough. They can't separate, all that stuff. Well, we already know that's not a problem in terms of separation. But getting Auburn, because you know that they're going to get into that stadium. It's going to be loud. They're going to be excited. And Auburn's coming off a loss, which I would say is very painful for them. More painful for John Mateer, obviously, but painful for them in the fact that we were this close to pulling off a victory that could have changed our season, could have altered it, right? Could have changed.
Is it painful, or are we numb to
it? Well, yeah. But
there's certainly a conversation, Taylor. There's certainly a conversation.
Fans that
because is it a heartbreaking thing, or is it just another day on the plains of Alabama?
I think Auburn fans would definitely agree that it's probably more of the numbing effect that they've grown accustomed to under Hugh Freeze. Wouldn't you agree?
Him, Brian Harsin, the couple years of Gus Malzahn, which is really I'll go on record and say that I wasn't for the Malzahn firing, and looking back at it, it continues to be like, I don't know if I would have made that move if I were the AD. But it's it's bad now when, Malzahn, averaged about 4 or 5 losses a year. And Auburn fans are like, man, I wish we could get that back. If we could just lose 5 7, life is going to be incredible. I think it's one of those that I think until Auburn can prove that they can win the big one, which again, this storyline is completely gone now because Auburn's not ranked in the polls anymore. They were ranked for the first time in the US LBM coaches poll. I will say that, Cameron.
Gotta get that plug in.
The Associated Press poll were ranked in both of those polls for the first time since 2021, which is hard for me to believe. But I think it was the Ole Miss win. Brian Harsin beat Lane Kiffin, if you can believe that. That win in 2021 was the win that put them in the poll the last time. And they come in ranked in both polls, and they had 2 opportunities to get a top 15 win on the road for the first time since 2021 as a ranked team. Oklahoma and then Texas A&M. Texas A&M, of course, in the bye week did their part. They beat Notre Dame. They get to stay in there. Auburn didn't. So it's just, until that big win comes, it's always going to be, dang, it's the same old, same old. And a win like this over A&M, or in 2 weeks, a night game at Jordan-Hare against Georgia, that could be a fun one too. But until then, it's almost like Hugh Freeze is still in a prove it mode. It's like you can recruit, but can you win the big game with those?
And I think some of the thing is, from what I've heard, is that after year 3 and 4 of Hugh Freeze, you can't exactly be in that figure it out stage, from what I understand from Auburn fans. But as of right now, I know it's only been a couple of games and they've played, South Alabama and Baylor, but they're holding their opponents to, I believe, the top 1 or 2 in the nation in opponent yards rush. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on, is because coming into this season, Texas A&M's running back room was kind of heralded as one of the top rooms in this entire SEC. You had experienced guys like Le'Veon Moss. You had a returning 5-star prospect of Reuben Owens. You had Amari Daniels, who was a go-to guy in certain spots, especially when Le'Veon Moss went down last year. But coming into this year, they were kind of expecting A&M to go full on with the rush-heavy attack and kind of beat these long 12-play, 7-minute drives, 8-minute drives down your throat and kind of beat teams that way. But so far, what we have seen in these first couple of games is actually Marcel Reed's actually beaten teams with his arm so far, especially that Notre Dame game. It doesn't really matter what the completion percentage says. He was just beating teams with his arm. But this is one of those games where it's going to be really, really interesting to see, especially with a defensive coordinator that A&M fans are familiar with in DJ Durkin, and where his rush defense is going to be. Because we saw here at A&M while he was here, it left a couple of things to be desired, but especially with an experienced running back room like this, where do you kind of see that kind of stays pat for Auburn, or is it may be a little inflated from the couple of games they've had in between Baylor and Oklahoma?
It is, and that's the defensive side of the rush has been very impressive. And what impresses me more is that Keldrick Falk hasn't been as much of a factor as a lot of people thought that he would. Coming in, Keldrick Falk, NFL first round draft pick, which I still think he will be. He's got the tangibles to do it, regardless of what his stats say at the end of the year or what they could say at the end of the year. But the two guys that have really impressed me this year are a couple of transfers. One that came in last year, Kieran Crawford, a edge rusher from Arkansas State, kind of got his feet wet last year, has really taken off this year. And then LSU linebacker transfer Xavier Atkins. These two guys, I kind of joke around with our other writers that anytime Xavier Atkins does anything well, I said that Auburn Wire is a Xavier Atkins website because we are big fans of him. And it's even better because he was at LSU for 1 year, didn't really get the chance, so we didn't know what to expect. And he's just killing it this year. A lot of tackles for loss. He's usually top 2, top 3 in tackles every single game. A big fan of him. And then Kieran Crawford has really come on, and it's really funny to me too because I didn't really pick up on this until earlier this year. I don't know how I missed it, but he only played 1 year of high school football. Like he left his high school, which I think was in Memphis somewhere. He left his high school still not really knowing how to get into a 3-point stance. He wasn't sure about like positioning. Goes to Arkansas State, does what he does, and then comes to Auburn and is now one of the top run defenders of the entire game. So the front seven, I'm really impressed with. Defensive back wise, kind of disappointed in the way that they've defended the pass, and because you look at what Sylvester Smith, Caleb Harris did. Jay Crawford was another guy that did a lot of good things last year, and Champ Anthony, bless his heart, he snaps his leg in the Arkansas game. He comes back. I think it was the Baylor game, broke his thumb. So he's just it's like he's a pincushion, bless his heart. But he got back in there last week, club and everything, still doing what he does. But yeah, I think it is a fair assessment that the run defense at Auburn has been legit this year, and it's going to be interesting to see what they can do against a team that was expected to bring a run-heavy offense like the Texas A&M Aggies were, because you look at Baylor, Sawyer Robertson, they're known to pass. Oklahoma, John Mateer, they're known to pass. Ball State is Ball State, we'll say that. Texas A&M's got a really good running back room, and it's going to be really interesting to see how well they do against a running back unit that is kind of like matches them, I guess, as far as the talent level and what they can bring to the offense. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and I don't think Colin Klein is looking to run the ball for. I mean, they're going to try, like I said, beginning of the show, they're going to try to establish a run. I mean, that's what everybody wants to do. They're going to try to be creative about it, but at the end of the day, if you can't do it, you're going to have to pass the ball, and you're going to have to focus. I mean, I could see this being another Le'Veon Moss 15 plus snaps, carries. And look, they might have to just rely on him again to average at least 4.5 yards per carry to keep this thing going a little bit, to keep this train rolling so that Marcel doesn't have to drop back every single play. But that's the thing they have to deal with in the SEC. They're going to, because the problem with hype is that opposing defenses are always going to look to stop that immediately. So we didn't know that this passing game was going to blow up like this. We had hopes, right? We thought, well, again, bring more speed and quickness, you're going to have more separation, which is going to help Marcel read his targets. We didn't know it was going to do this at all. Like, especially in that Auburn game, that really kind of told us, okay, this is an elite group. And if a quarterback's doing this right now, and I think it's Brooks Austin, who does kind of the film guy stuff. I think he's a writer for Georgia with Sports Illustrated. He did one of the best breakdowns of Marcel Reed and said those were big boy throws, right? Completion percentage wasn't great, but they came into this game wanting to get explosive plays through the air. And if you can do that every game, you don't need to have an elite run game. And the fact is that last season, why they were better, well, maybe they just had to focus on it more. They needed that to work to have any real offense because they couldn't rely on their passing game. They just couldn't. And there's only a handful of games where, actually against Auburn last year in the overtime win for the Tigers, Marcel Reed really had to have his best game. And yes, his receivers stepped up for the most part, but if you had this crop of receivers last year, we're talking 2 or 3 more wins, right? Because I can just see it right now. We're talking because there were some close losses, especially against the Texas Longhorns at the end of the season. That was a 17-7 game. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't separate. I mean, Noah Thomas, who's now with Georgia, he was the only one who got any bit of separation, and that was against that was elite route running, right? They were going against Johnny Barron, a couple NFL level corners. I forget the other one who's with the Eagles right now, but I mean, it was a very, very good group, right? And so an average A&M wide receiver core can't do anything against them, and so it's just very different now because we're always going to go into these games thinking, well, hopefully A&M can run the ball, but it's not one of those things of okay, if Le'Veon Moss doesn't get going, we're scoring. Because that was kind of how it was last year. Because I got to think back to the Arkansas game, the last one in Jerry World. I forget it was. I think they started the game out with a long pass to Noah Thomas. He was pretty much wide open, and then Marcel Reed struggled in the pocket because there were some accuracy issues. But again, he just didn't have the guys to get it done, to get those yak yards, to really hurt Arkansas secondary. And it was up to Le'Veon Moss, who at the end of the game just put the team on his back and had a couple explosive runs that got him to the red zone. And yes, Marcel had called some great plays. They ended up getting the close win. It's just this team, they didn't want to do that anymore, and that's why they went out and got these 2 elite wide receivers. And I think it's the same for Auburn, right? They're hoping that, the run game should get us through some matchups, hopefully. We want that. But we went out and got Singleton to pair with Cam Coleman because we want to be able to beat these teams through the air when we have to. It's just, can our quarterback hit them in stride? That's the biggest thing. If they can do that, that's why we all kind of pumped up Auburn in the offseason outside of that small window where we were talking about, oh, crap, is he a good quarterback or not? Look, I think he's fine. I think Arnold is going to have better games. I think it's very hard, and we've seen it with 5-star prospects. You and I, Taylor, we've all been covering college football for a while, recruiting. A lot of these guys don't pan out. Arch Manning's struggling. Someone put the recruiting class up. So this is the worst quarterback class I've ever seen. I was like,
I was just about to bring that up. Yeah, I'm glad you said it.
And I'm going to be honest. I was writing about DJ Lagway's injury, because Florida's playing A&M in a couple weeks, right? And I'm just kind of looking at his numbers, and I'm going, wow, 5 interceptions against LSU. It's like we didn't think that these guys would struggle this much because sometimes, and I'm not saying the experts are wrong, but it's not looking great right now, right? So for Arnold, it's a personal thing too, because he was heralded coming out of high school. We all thought he was the next Heisman winner type of player for Oklahoma in that long line under Lane Kiffin, Lincoln Riley, Lane Kiffin. But yeah, it's going to be one of those interesting matchups where you're coming off a very painful loss for them. I get it's run of the mill for Auburn fans, same with A&M, but it's going to fall on his shoulders. I'm going to be honest, for them to have a chance in this game, because if A&M gets pressure early, we were all saying, Texas A&M senior edge, Cassius Howell licking his chops. He's seeing. I'm going to be honest, I will say that Oklahoma's front is very good, very talented, very deep. But it's not like A&M's guys, who are a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys, can't get to him either, right? Because we talk about Albert Regis, I believe a 4-star player. We talk about DJ Hicks, a 5-star prospect, one of the highest ranked defensive tackles in recruiting history. And we talk about Cassius Howell, who, he was a 2- or 3-star player, but he plays like a 4- or 5-star player based on the experience. So if they can get pressure early and really get into his head, I'd pick A&M all day. But if it becomes one of those games where, again, Auburn gets an early score, you have to play catch-up, kind of like they did against Notre Dame, because I'm going to be honest, when they got behind 7-0, they blocked that punt. I was sitting there, didn't go to the game for various reasons, but I was like, okay, this is not trending in the right direction, because A&M has not been able to match teams when they get behind outside of last year's overtime loss to Auburn when they were down 21-0, and they did come back, but that was kind of random. But I'm not saying they should do that. They can do it. But I think getting back home in front of a potentially sold out, close to it, Kyle Field, you need to take full advantage of that, and you can't let Auburn spoil the party just because they're upset and they need. Hugh Freeze is fighting for, I guess, I don't know if he's fighting for his job this season. I really don't know, but he's fighting for the next 2 years probably just to even have a head coaching job in a prestigious position like this.
Taylor, how can Auburn make this a get right game for them? I know they're going on the road to College Station, but how do they, in your mind, would they have to pull out all the stops to win this game? Because it's not entirely unattainable. I know we're kind of painting the picture of like Auburn, woe is me kind of mentality, but this is a really talented Auburn team that can come in and win when you're not expecting it. So how can they come into College Station and kind of show that they are actually that team that people were kind of hyping them up at the start of the season with this newly revamped roster?
I look at the offensive line and, of course, looking at, I'm a big Pro Football Focus guy. So I look at the data and I'm like, yeah, this really checks out. But one of the things that I watched on the safety play, which made it 24-17, a full touchdown game that upset a lot of people who had the 6.5 point spread, really upset them if they took the under. But it was our Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, who was suspended in the first half because he got called for targeting against Temple. He came in the second half, acted like he'd played the whole game. And if you really look at the film, I don't know if he told the rest of the Oklahoma defensive line this or they just kind of followed his lead or what the deal was, but they had, I think, four down defensive linemen. Mason Thomas was the only one that rushed. Everybody else either backed up or they just kind of were just kind of like, kind of playing a spy, if you will. They weren't going after him. They were waiting on him. They were waiting on Arnold to come out. And he just stood there, and Mason went after him, no problem, got through and got him. So it's got to start with the offensive line. You talk about those great defensive linemen. They've got to protect those guys better. And I think once that gets corrected, we may see a little bit more for Jackson Arnold. Not really sure if it's he's waiting for his receivers to get open or if he's trying to make something happen that he doesn't need to. He's thinking too much. I don't really know. But I feel like if the offensive line plays a little bit better, and I don't know if it's a weight room thing or if it's a scheme thing, I would hope it's more of a scheme thing than a weight room thing because that's a completely different issue if it's a weight room issue. But I think it all starts with the offensive line, and everything else will come together. You talked about the quarterback thing, Cam, and I'm still not entirely familiar with Oklahoma Twitter and their troll game. But one of the funniest tweets I saw last week. And if you don't follow Auburn, if you're just a casual fan that watches the game on Saturday and that's it, it's probably going to take you for a loop. But if you do what we do and really look into the stats and really look at what things are, it really makes you laugh. I saw a tweet that said, it was from an Oklahoma guy. He said, DJ Lagway and Jackson Arnold have combined for 6 interceptions through 3 games. When are Auburn fans going to have enough? The thing is Jackson Arnold hasn't thrown an interception all year. So for those casual fans, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But like, I gotta get a chuckle out of that one. That was great.
Yeah. Is one of the keys for? I guess I'll flip it on its head. Is one of the keys for A&M winning this game outright, just kind of pulling away at home? Is it another game where Marcel Reed is going to take over with his arm? Is that kind of how you're looking at it? If it were to be a 3-score game by the end and you kind of just gave that score to somebody, would that be kind of the overall consensus, or do you kind of foresee this game to be more of a ground out kind of closer game?
I would see. I feel like A&M's chances are much better if they can pass, because I think the Auburn defensive backfield has struggled this year. But I don't think that's going to be the issue, because if he can't beat Kieron Crawford, Xavier Atkins, Keldrick Falk, then the defensive backfield is not going to matter at all. So I think if Marcel Reed does throw for over 200 yards, and that's probably going to be a really good sign for Texas A&M.
I gotcha.
Yeah, and I think, that's the thing we haven't touched on yet, but A&M's offensive line has been elite in pass protection. They've really overperformed in that area. I think both me and Ken thought maybe the run blocking would be the strength, but Marcel Reed was barely touched against Notre Dame, which I think a lot of Notre Dame fans were just like, how is that possible? He had plenty of time to go through his progressions. He had to scramble for a couple plays, but they're really finding their stamina. And I'll have to start with the interior. Chase Bisontis actually spoke today. man, that is a big boy. I mean, Jesus. I mean, if he wants to go into pro wrestling or professional weightlifting after this, he's got the look for it. He's got the size for it, certainly. But he's been playing above expectation. Obviously, both their tackles have been playing very well. And that's the thing. I know that Auburn has a lot of defensive talent, but I'm not there yet and being scared of what they're going to bring, because I think this O-line has faced it all so far.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're not going to be prepared for what they're going to bring defensively, especially in the pass rush. And I think Marcel Reed has seen it all. He's taken every type of hit. He's gotten pressured a lot against better. I mean, you go back to Texas, they had one of the better defensive lines, very senior led, very aggressive. Obviously, Colin Simmons was young, but he's still a monster and somebody who, he needs to take the penalty issues down. But other than that, he's an NFL talent, even as a freshman. But so he knows what's coming, right? And he knows now that the message is clear. Like, we need explosive plays to the basket. We need to get chunk yards. We need to get Mario Craver in wide open space. We need to get some deep passes to Casey Concepcion to really get down the field quickly. And then we'll start to open up the run game. Then we'll start to basically the same formula they had against Notre Dame. That's not just one game. That's not, Colin Klein's going to pull it out of his bag, right? He's going to really use all that intellect he has to win this game. No, they're going to do that throughout the season because they know that the defenses are going to get better. And we talk about even Florida, for example. That's a pretty damn good defense. I will say that was a very ugly game against Miami. Mainly, I think Florida had like 65 passing yards. That's how you lose. I mean, that's the thing. But they held them in check for most of the game. It's just when you're Miami, you're just constantly running the ball, and then you're going to get that score a little higher at the end. But they're going to face some tough defenses, starting with Auburn. Mississippi State, I'm not sure. I really don't know about them at all yet in terms of if they're an actual good SEC team. But it's not going to get any easier, right? So I think it's really going to tell us a lot how good Marcel Reed has gotten, how much he's actually progressed. Because he would even tell you that, yeah, it was exciting to beat Notre Dame. It was exciting to do it the way we did. But this is just the start. We needed this win to have a good resume. But you beat Auburn at home, who's considered still one of the, USA Today did their re-rank. And I think that's a pretty accurate look at how these teams are looked at nationally. And they're still in the top 35, right? They dropped down a little bit because they lost, but they lost to a top 10 ranked Oklahoma team, right? So it's not like they're kind of like an A&M a couple years ago, right? They're kind of hanging around. They're good enough to beat anybody. They just got to put it together. While A&M is more of the sexy team right now because of the way they're scoring points. I will say it was very annoying that the national media all of a sudden loved them, because they did the thing of what they thought Texas was going to do with Arch, right? Score a ton of points, look explosive. Well, no, it's A&M doing it now, so they're praising them. I hate that. I'm going to be honest. I do not like seeing that. I wish they would just ignore A&M and let them do what they're doing. But they have a lot to withstand. They have a lot to just ignore. And one of the key names I will say on defense that it's hopeful he's back is senior linebacker Scooby Williams. So we did hear some good news this week that he's making tremendous progress. He's very important in the middle of this defense because I'll personally say Auburn fans will get very used to Torrey York, who very good player, but struggled immensely in coverage. And he was actually a liability for A&M. That's been an issue for him for a while. He's undersized. He knows it. I mean, it's something like he needs to work on. He's not ignoring that fact. But their other linebacker, Damian Sanford, more of a pass rusher, very good run stopper. He's not someone you're going to put in coverage against, a bigger tight end or something like that. So it is very important that Williams does play in this game. If he doesn't, there could be a hole there to expose for Jackson Arnold. So again, that's why I will say, and kind of going into the betting realm of this, I think you correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, and I think A&M is maybe a 4.5 point favorite right now.
Last I saw was a 6.5 favorite at home. I think the 3.5 is considering, or the plus 3.5 on top of it is for the home field advantage. So I think it's more of a touchdown favorite, if I'm not mistaken, but you could also be right as well.
And, kind of tell the people, our sponsorship and everything going on here.
Yeah. So I was checking it out earlier today, and as of right now, our wonderful sponsorship, who, if y'all are not already aware, our great sponsor of the show is Underdog Fantasy. So if you want We do have a code with it, and if you want to make a $5 deposit, you actually get $50 just like that right into your account. So you can scroll through all of your picks. They have NFL, WNBA, college football. I'm a big fan of just going through the college football, even if I'm not putting any plays in. But right now they have game picks range. You can even go all the way down to like a Georgia Tech at Wake. They have player.
It's deep.
It's deep. Hey, you can make some plays on that all the way. But right now they've got some player team picks for a lot of college football teams coming out. They don't really have A&M or Auburn ones today, but yeah, if you guys want to go check it out and get that awesome deal that they've given us, you can use code COV FB Aggies. That is COVF, or correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just misspelling. I think I'm just dyslexic today.
So boys college football. So VOC, yeah,
VOC FB.
Yeah, and as usual, all participants must be 21 or older. If you have any gambling problem, issues in that regard, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. I think, and mainly I brought that up because when you have, I believe at the beginning of the week it was 6.5. It's really trickled down to 4.5 to in that 5 range. So there is, and I get that. I really do understand that, and actually that kind of makes me happy that the bettors are football guys. They're actually watching the game. There's been this conspiracy in the NFL that they don't actually watch the games, and I'm like, it's kind of true actually, because I see these lines and like the Cowboys play. The Cowboys have injury upon injury. They're playing the Green Bay Packers like a 6.5. I'll be like, yeah, I'd make that like 10 right now. I'm going to be honest with you, but it's Sunday Night Football. We'll see what happens. But either way, they know that there are issues on both sides for either team. That this could be, really we presented both sides. Is that this could be a game where Jackson Arnold is, as the kids say, shook, and he got stacked a ton. He's facing another defensive line that is hungry to get after him. If the O-line continues to break down, it could be a very violent, ugly game for him. Or A&M's defensive line doesn't get as much pressure as they want. Auburn's O-line flips it back. They're playing a lot better. He hits a couple deep passes. They get those chunk gains they need, make it a low-scoring game defensively, and Auburn can get out of there with like a field goal win or something like that. I mean, there are those things have happened. I think we actually talked about it last week. That was kind of funny when the time came down for a 2:30 game. You kind of look back at the history with Texas A&M and Auburn, and A&M did not favor well in those 2:30 games. And it's
had Kyle Field of all places too, which is
exactly.
strange to me.
Bo Nix, the 1 year, which it was like one play to one of that speedy wide receiver. I can't remember his name. But then there was a closer game. I think it was with Kellen Mond, and again, it's not. I wouldn't be using those as examples. Those were worse offenses. Those are very Jimbo Fisher-esque type of offenses. Get the inches, as he used to say. They weren't explosive. If you got a big, I remember in the 2020 season when he hit that long touchdown against Florida, I was like, we're all watching that going, wow, he actually completed a deep pass for a touchdown. It's like, because it never happened. Now it's completely changed, right? It's just it's a different game where, I kind of compared to Missouri coming in to Kyle Field last year, where Missouri was very confident. There's all that pregame stuff with Willie in the blanket being sent and all that crap. And then A&M just beat the living sky out of that team to the point where it didn't derail Missouri's season, and it really didn't help A&M season. It's kind of weird because those are kind of like momentum boosts, but that's just life in the SEC. Like sometimes you can be as confident as ever at home or on the road, and you might get your ass beat, and it just doesn't really matter. So it really is about both teams sticking to their principles, fixing the fixable issues. And if that happens, I think we're going to have a very tight, close game. I don't think this is going to get out of hand. It could, though. That's the thing. If Auburn has a bad day up front, it could get out of hand because we know defensive momentum usually leads to offensive momentum, and A&M could run the score up. But right now, after watching, I think Kenny can agree, after watching that game, I still think Auburn's a very, very good team. I think they're just a couple steps away from being a competitor. and I mean like a college football playoff competitor. But we'll see. I mean, this is a big game for them, and it's a big game for A&M. I'm not saying A&M can afford to lose this game. I don't think you can really afford to lose any game nowadays. But it's a 3-game homestand. They need to win all these games, in my opinion, before going on the road because they need as much momentum as possible. Dropping one in Kyle Field, it will just be disappointing. I don't think it's going to help them at all. But for Auburn, like you said, you go 3-2. It gets louder and louder for Hugh Freeze because you just can't. This isn't the Auburn way, right? This isn't the standard that was created under Gus Malzahn, to be honest with you, and years past with other coaches. You go back to Tommy Tuberville, you go back all those generations, and I mean, look, I know a lot of Auburn grads. I know a lot of people who just, like you said, it's kind of so, and it's like, it is what it is. It shouldn't be that way. I'm going to be honest with all the
with the talent-rich environment that Auburn's in, it shouldn't have to be like this. And we feel for Auburn fans, Taylor. We've seen this happen for the past couple of years, and we even in our professionalism say Auburn fans deserve better.
Yeah,
and
it's a win too. That if Auburn wins this game, it's going to go a long way as opposed to a loss. And the reason we say that is because A&M on the road this week, bye week next week, Georgia the week after that, guaranteed night game at Jordan-Hare Stadium. First time that we've had that against Georgia in quite some time, thanks to the CBS rule of always picking that game up for whatever reason. So you want Auburn to have a ton of momentum coming into that game because the crowds are going to be rowdy. They're going to be having a lot of fun before the game. There may be some fights between some Auburn and Georgia fans, like I've seen before around Jordan-Hare Stadium. There's they're going to be having some liquid courage before then. They're going to be fun. The crowd's going to be fun. Yeah. DJ Ben Brood, who's done wonderful things the last few years, he's going to be getting the music right. Swag Surf's going to be awesome in the fourth quarter. You don't want a non-motivated team to come into that game.
And I will counter you there. I don't think they're going to be. I think if you lose, again, losing on the road in the SEC is almost guaranteed. If you win all your games on the road, you're probably going to win the national championship. I'm going to be honest with you.
I'd say you're probably the favorite.
Even the favorite, right? You're going to have because if you can do that, you're going to go into the playoffs with zero fear on the road anywhere because we kind of
go 4-4 in the SEC. You win all of your games on the road. You're feeling pretty good.
Yeah,
exactly. You should automatically go in that regardless of record.
So yeah, I get it. I get if they lose, but again, if you lose in Kyle Field to an A&M team that many believe is top 10 good, is that good, being that they're ranked 9th this week. I was kind of surprised they actually moved up the spot after the bye week, but they have confidence in them. They think this A&M team is that good. We will see if they are that good. This is a really approved game for them as well. But I do believe if Auburn drops this game, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think that 3-2 is ugly on paper, but I think after the bye week, I think that Georgia game is just going to be so big that they're going to come out so hyped up and so focused on not just doing it for their head coach, but doing it for this program. And if you can win that game, you're back in a decent spot. You just have to make a run. I do kind of hate how people are like, well, the season's over after 2. It's really not.
No, I mean, not now with the playoff going to 12. Yeah. Exactly. When it was 4, yeah, absolutely, you lose 2. There's no way, but it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, because when we were looking at all the post game stuff, and ESPN put something out this week about where A&M's kind of position will playoff, and I get it's very early, but when you do read stuff like that, they're going to keep using that Notre Dame win as like that's the best win, right? That's the best win they have. Hell, even if they beat Texas at the end of the season, it depends where they were at before. To beat Texas. And it depends on who Texas is, right? I don't know who Texas is right now. I think they're probably back to what they were supposed to be. But if Texas is like an 8 or 9 win team, which I don't know yet. I mean, we'll see what they do against Florida in a couple weeks. Then it's not going to mean as much. But that Notre Dame game means everything to them. So they just have to keep stacking as many wins as possible. And that's the same for Auburn. I think if Auburn loses this game and then they beat Georgia and then they get some other key wins, they're going to have that win against Georgia, which is going to be huge because that's the number 1 team. They're constantly considered the number 1 team, the best team, the most complete team. So I'm just not sure yet. I get it, but at the same time, A&M still had a chance to get to the SEC championship with 2 losses at that time, or 3 losses. I think it was 3 losses, Cannon. Yeah. So there's always an opportunity there, and So I think it's just too early to be that decisive. But again,
there's not a lot of criteria that we can kind of go off of yet in the SEC, especially with I know Auburn's only played one SEC game, if I'm not mistaken, Taylor.
Yeah. Only
so at this point, you're kind of wading through all the criteria that you have. And Cameron, you and I have talked about it before that we kind of are marking the Mississippi State game as enough criteria to go off of to where you can kind of project the rest of the season how it might look. And I'm guessing that's probably the same for Auburn and what you are covering, Taylor, is after this game and the bye week and then Georgia is probably where you're kind of assessing where all of these moving pieces are kind of solidifying at that point. So I really think going into this game that after watching A&M take on Notre Dame, there was the whole narrative of, the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame, fire him because he's letting A&M score all these points on him. There are two schools of thought for that one. Either that A&M's offense is just really good this year, or Notre Dame's defense is just not anywhere close to on par as what it was last year. I'm thinking it's probably the first option. I don't think Notre Dame's defense was just going to drop off of a cliff. I did think it was going to take some steps back, but in this game, especially at home against Auburn, we've seen A&M's offense take the steps necessary this year in all of their games. I think this is a game where if Auburn does want to win, they're going to have to, score more than like 33 points against them.
Yeah, I think Taylor might pause there. But I think that, technical issues again.
Yeah, it's okay.
We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like, and I think these are two teams that they have yet to really make, outside of A&M with Notre Dame, I still think they have too much to prove ahead before we can really talk about them as actual college football playoff contenders, because there were too many times last year where they were too one-dimensional. And we always go back to that South Carolina game. I don't know how many times I've mentioned it and when I've written about stuff, is that was a change point. It was that, Le'Veon Moss went out with the injury and everything just went downhill after that. And it's just crazy how that happens, right? Because it's just a running back, because you should have depth, but they didn't. They didn't have really any depth behind him compared to this year. He was their offense. They had built an offense behind him mid-season, especially after trading quarterback starts with Connor Wegman, who's now at Houston. It was a very weird mixed match thing that when they were 7-1, we're all sitting there going, this team is 7-1, like with all this noise and all this stuff, but they're 7-1. They're much better this season, and they're much more well equipped to go on a run because they do have depth in the areas they did not last year. And I get there's issues in the defense that could be exposed again against Auburn that we're hoping are fixed. That Ken and I have talked about off camera about, Elko's considered one of the better defensive minds. Well, is he going to live up to it finally? Because he has a lot of issues and he knows it, right? He's very vocal about it. And we're going to get to our predictions in a minute. That's what I'm kind of leading up to. So yeah, I'll go first, and I'll say that I'm still very 50-50 on this game. It's going to take me probably until Friday when I'm mulling it over and we're doing our stat predictions and stuff like that. That I'll finally get to a decision, but I'll kind of make one now. I do believe A&M's going to pull this one out. I think it's going to be close. Mainly, I just trust their O-line right now. I trust from what I've heard from Chase Bisontis. I trust from what I've heard on the injury front. Ruben Fatherly is also expected to be available in this game, is one of their more reliable swing tackles who was missed from a depth perspective. And if he is, and they have that depth there, and I think in the run game, I think it's going to be big. If they average 4 to 5 yards per carry, if Le'Veon Moss, knock on wood, stays healthy, has a good game, very similar to what he did against Notre Dame, I think that they're going to get enough in the passing game. I just think that Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver are man beaters. Nobody can really cover them. They're too quick. I think if you put your best corner in bracket somebody, I think I could see that happening, for example. I could see them bracketing Mario Craver because they're just so afraid that he's going to get those chunk yards and kill them. But that's just going to leave Casey Concepcion on an island. And he's one of the best, more crisp route runners out there. And I just think that, I say A&M scores about 27 points. And I think that the defense is going to allow some explosive plays. So I'll say Auburn has about 24. So I'll say A&M 27-24 right now. That's where I'm kind of at. It's a 2:30 game.
You're taking Auburn plus the points.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well,
who's ever next?
I think I'm going to go a different direction. I think with all of the, I can go off of statistics all I want, but I have watched both of these teams play their quality competition so far, and even I watched the entire. I didn't watch the Ball State Auburn game, but I did watch the South Alabama one. I'm sorry to all the Ball State fans, but what I've seen, the eye test is a very, very big thing when it comes to college football. That matters especially with the fans. What they see is what they get. Sometimes the common fan won't be able to dive all into these statistics, which we are able to bring forth to them. I know you guys are with me on that we've kind of put on paper what they're not seeing. But I'm looking in between the lines, and I think this is one of those games, like I said earlier, where Auburn is going to have to try and score more than 30 to 33 points in order to win this game. And maybe it's just a gut or a heart kind of feeling, but when I look at it, I really don't think that they get there with how many penalties that Auburn has been accustomed to so far this season. I do think Auburn's rush defense is exceptional. I agree with you, Taylor, on that it has looked awesome as of thus far, but I really do think this is a game that A&M just kind of wins outright at home. So I think I'm going to go off on a limb here, and I think the final score is going to be 35-24 A&M.
Ooh. Well, at least you have my 24 there. That's why I just think that for some reason.
I think they can score 24 in this game.
Yeah, I'll try to be a little bit more on the optimistic side and not try to batter the run game and the quarterback as much as I have so far in this show. Try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Things go well in that regard. The defense will do their thing, stop the run. Passing game may be a good time for Texas A&M, but if it comes down late and Auburn needs to kick a field goal to win, or we'll say send it to overtime in this situation, I like Auburn 30 yards or below in the field goal situation, because that's Alex McPherson, of course, coming back from ulcerative colitis.
Yeah, great story.
Not as much as he can give.
Yeah.
31 or above, Towns Magoo, Connor Gibbs, the Southern Miss transfer. I don't have as much trust in them from 31 plus. So if it comes down to a field goal and it's a 31-yard field goal, A&M's going to win 27-24. But if it's inside 30, we're going to OT, and whatever happens after that. If we get another 4 OT game,
like we're getting another overtime game, is what I'm hearing.
I have something to do that Saturday night.
Cameron, what I'm hearing is you are not going to have any free time that night because we're heading to another 4.
I didn't have any free time last year during the Auburn Texas.
Yeah, I know. We were both up till like 2 a.m.
Which Cam, I'm kind of glad we changed the format of how we do post game and in game coverage.
Yes,
because it was so aggravating.
Yeah, you don't know that we do. Yeah, we do. We now do this live update game. So
like last year it was recaps. Like we just write the recap after. And I'm surprised I still have a delete key on my laptop because it was okay. Here's what's going on. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Way easier. way less stressful.
I was waiting on the Slack channel for one of the patches to be like, why have you put a recap up yet? I'm like, I had 520 something words typed that I've had to just
delete them all.
Yeah.
250. Yeah. It was ugly. I mean, people don't want that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, I think we're all on the same page here. I just can't see this being an A&M blowout. I can't see it being a game where, Auburn, we talked about all week, their weaknesses are going to show up, and I'm just going to eat in the defensive line. It's going to be a great game for the Aggies, and they're just going to roll on to week 6 and face Mississippi State in a blackout game, right? Night game, exciting, blah, blah, blah. I just don't see that. I think it's going to be a very, pearl clutching type of matchup where it's like, it's going to come down to probably the last 2 or 3 plays. I mean, that could be the case. And I mean, that's just how it's been with Auburn. I mean, outside of like a couple games here and there, that's just how it's been. I mean, it's just, even last year, I mean, I knew that was going to be a bad game for A&M. I didn't know that. I thought they were going to win at the end. I even came into that going, crap, this Auburn team, they kind of suck, but they don't suck that much, and they're good enough to beat this.
They just need one or two things to go their way, and
exactly.
it hasn't happened up there.
Yeah,
only the SEC, crew kind of took note of that this game of Auburn A&M has always kind of been this interesting in recent years, and they should have just made it an annual thing.
Yeah, and I knew they put it at 2:30 for that reason. They did it on purpose. Right. They're like, yeah, we're making it 2:30 so we get it as suspenseful as possible because
we always wanted Kentucky, Mississippi State a night game.
Yeah, I don't think I have watched a 2:30 A&M game that I have enjoyed covering them. I don't. I'd have to look back. I don't think there's been one. I'm not even kidding you. There might have been one like in between, but I think they've all been bad in some way. So I'm not putting that as like that's going to happen, but I just think it's early enough where anything weird can happen. As I say, the way the ball bounces sometimes, I don't know. But you know what? We're going to end the show actually talking about the permanent opponents quickly. We'll start with A&M's, which we'll talk about this more next week. But the fact that Arkansas is not one of them was very upsetting to me personally. Texas, LSU, and Missouri, of all teams, is Texas A&M's permanent opponents now. Obviously, they released the 9-game schedule. I don't understand Missouri one bit. They have played them 5 times in the past. What is it, since 2012 maybe, or even before that? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. Someone tried to explain. Even Mike Elko was like, yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I loved it. He's like one of us. He doesn't understand why they chose it. But it's one of those things where maybe there were just a couple games in between that they thought, Missouri's just up and coming program. They are trying to find their rivals outside of Kansas, right? They're trying to find those SEC rivals they really hate, and maybe A&M is one of them. I don't know, but I did like this. I'll say this, leave this on a comical note. I saw who's it, Tiger Beat or something. It's the main LSU guy who's a really first-class hater. And I got to commend him for that. But he was like, LSU has no rivals. I was like, what does that even mean? And I think he said that because A&M is now rival. I was like, I had to ponder that for like 10 minutes. I was like, wait a minute. They have no rivals? So is everybody their rival? I don't know. I don't know. I'm too stupid for that. Either way, Cannon, what did you think about the permanent rivals there?
I'm sorry?
Outside of Texas, obviously,
yeah. I do think that what they tried to do is protect the sanctity of certain rivalries. So obviously, you knew that like Florida, Georgia was going to be a big thing. You knew that Texas A&M was going to be a big thing. I think when you look at it from a holistic perspective, one of the things that they have said is, we can go reevaluate after 4 years. You look at a team like Texas, and you really don't have to change any of them because all of those are considered more historic rivalries with Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. But I think when I look at all of the teams and the permanent opponents they got, it was kind of easy to predict maybe 50% of them before they came out. You knew you were going to have these rivalries. So your thought process and what theirs was as well was, all right, let's look at the teams since the start of 2021. Let's see how their success has been, and let's gauge it against each other's success. So I think that's why A&M drew Missouri over a team like Arkansas in this instance, is because of the similarity between their win-loss percentage and how the stats kind of match up. I think it's really interesting that A&M's and Arkansas's are the same 3 opponents. But Taylor, if you want to kind of give us a look into Auburn's permanent 3 opponents, at least for the next 4 years, what are we looking at?
The 3 that we got, which I'm pleased with, considering what it could have been, Alabama, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. And, you and I, we were all talking about this before we went on the air, is that I believe it was Paul Meyerberg of USA Today came out after it was announced that SEC was going to 9 games, is that giving Auburn Vanderbilt would only be fair if they have to play Alabama and Georgia every single year. Me personally, kind of being, a fan that's has been a fan since the early 2000s maybe. The game that I really enjoyed was Florida. I always liked watching Auburn and Florida play. Those games are always fun. I hate that I think 2028 is the first year that Auburn is going to go to the Swamp, and that will be 10 years since they had been to the Swamp. So I'm glad we're getting back to a pace to where we see more of those games. I think we get at Tennessee, and it's been forever since Auburn's played at Tennessee as well. That'll be a game next year. So I'm looking forward to the new format and excited to get that rivalry up with Vanderbilt again, and hopefully we can. Can you believe Auburn and Vanderbilt 22-22-1?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like get that rivalry with Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's we got to build that up.
hey, Clark Lea is not going anywhere too. So
they said it right. I mean, on the college football program on Netflix. I mean, he was like, "We're a program now." I was like, we'll see. Well, they were right. I mean, when they kicked South Carolina's ass, I was like,
and he's probably and if the courts have their way, he's going to be around next year too. He just does not go away.
I don't know. I think he went on social media.
I think he said cap. I think he said cap for that, but I would not be surprised.
No, I don't know if you want. I mean,
only one more year of Diego Pavia is one more that I can handle. So
don't worry, they're going to start reeling those 5-star quarterbacks now. You just watch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the 5-star quarterback with dreams of a 401k and a Fortune 500.
Hey, you know what? It's like a little Ivy, essentially. You get
either that or you have 4.5 weighted GPA that wants to be the next country singer. Who knows? You never know.
I think maybe it's going to be mandatory. You all have to major in like engineering or something, and then that's going to hurt recruiting. Maybe that's going to be
what I would hope to do. And I know that Nashville's growing a lot, so I don't know how possible this would be. But if there's a way that they could reconstruct campus to where it's not crowded, that'd be great. Because I don't know if you guys have seen the overhead picture of what Vanderbilt's campus looks like.
Yep.
But the basketball arena, which is there's no redeeming qualities about that. The baseball stadium and the football stadium, which they have, given it a facelift. It looks nice now. All three of those are on one city block. So you could hit a foul ball from the baseball field and it land in the football field, and you could hit a home run to deep left and it land on top of the gym. Like that, it's no joke. So if we get an engineering degree, get some city
management. That's my point. It's like I'm guessing because that's just saying like these athletes are very smart, all of them, but they can easily major in that. Like I know Georgia's like that's the thing. I don't think that's why we do those rankings with school rankings. I don't think people realize how many good schools are in the SEC, like really good schools like Auburn, Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas. Even the Mississippi schools are pretty good for what you're getting for education wise. So it's like there's some smart guys coming out of there, and that's why Vanderbilt is starting to grow. Some of those alumni, some of those former athletes. Benjamin Watson, I think, is one of them. I'm thinking of somebody who else played at Vanderbilt. He played at Georgia, I think. They've got a lot of sneaky athletes who have played. Jay Cutler, obviously.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, they've got to love this because again, this was the doormat team. I never understood why they were the doormat team. I always thought that there was some money somewhere that could really help them build. I guess it's now.
I think it's kind of the same thing that like Northwestern goes through. It's like our academic standards are different, and when you look at because like I teach high school during the day, so like you kind of look at different schools and what they kind of do for athletes. Yeah. And Vanderbilt and the Georgia Techs and the Northwesterns and the Dukes really don't play that as much as into it. So they're like, that was, I had a classmate of mine I graduated with. He ended up playing at Southern Illinois, but one of the like small offers he had was, he had one to Duke and one to Vanderbilt. And that was the thing with him. It wasn't, you're going to go to the NFL. It wasn't, you're going to play for a conference title. You're getting a degree from Vanderbilt. So that's worth it anyway. And that's kind of what the push is. It's like we may get thumped by Tennessee every year. You may not get to go to the NFL, but you're going to get hired wherever you want to because you have this degree.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what they pushed for so many years.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, and obviously the Eli Stauer story is just incredible because, I mean, A&M fans just kind of find they're like, man, they should have kept him. It was like, did A&M know he was going to turn into a tight end and an all-SEC caliber tight end? No, nobody knew that was happening. And the fact that he did, we don't see that all the time. I remember let's remember Lamar Jackson, when he's going to be a wide receiver. I'm like, okay, stop it.
He's the 160th ranked quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's that's another guy that I kind of have a FOMO of, because like he went on Twitter multiple times while he was a high school recruit. So excited to visit Auburn this weekend. I hope they offer. And he didn't get the offer. And it's just,
they just don't know. I mean, we could talk an hour about recruiting misses and
gosh, I know.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I have some from A&M that are kind of all the way backlogged into my mind. There's a certain tight end that went to Oklahoma who was kind of pegged to go to A&M by the name of Mark Andrews that kind of fell through.
That is actually true. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that. There's really. Yeah, there was a couple Texas guys. I remember Billy Lucci at Texas. He's actually he's got the mind for that. I mean, he's been covering A&M since 98 or something after he graduated. But he could tell you every recruit that they lost. That Texas lost to A&M, or A&M lost to Texas. I mean, several of them. I mean, Reuben Owens is still a big one in their mind.
Reuben Owens is
they're still pissed about that. I mean, it's kind of funny because Reuben Owens has been good. He hasn't really had that big year yet because of the injuries, but I still see people talking about that. Like, what could have been? We would have used him better. I'm like, okay.
Can we call this game the Cam Coleman Bowl? Is that what we're calling this game?
I mean, he never played a down for A&M, so I don't know if it's really that. I talked about it with somebody else, and I was like, I don't know if you can call. If he comes in here and is pissed off, I'm going to show them. Show them what? You decommitted.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just stirring the pot a little bit. It's
I know.
And the other thing I'm looking at too is Mario Craver. We let a Bessemer kid get out of state.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing.
I'm telling you that after that game, I mean, I think all of us covering the team, no matter if a beat writer is trying to stay professional, you're hyped beyond belief. You just saw one of the best games of the year. And so, I couldn't sleep. My adrenaline was running like crazy. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, how in God's name did they miss on this kid? He's doing this. And I mean, the fluid route running, he already looks like Hollywood Brown type level route running, that quickness type, NFL level. And I'm like, how did you miss on them? How did anybody? I just don't get it anymore. But
and it's one of those things too, where it's
icing probably.
It's one of those things too, where I'm sure, you see this too, both of you guys being the big recruiting guys you are, you look at the, top 10, top 15 of your home state.
Oh, yes.
And, number one, Alabama's there, Georgia's there, Texas A&M, both of those have done really well coming into Alabama. Number two, where he's thinking, number three is going. And then you just have one that's in the top 15 that you're like, we know nothing about. Nobody's covered him. That was Mario Craver for us. Because for the longest time, because there would be, it was a couple years ago where I think Auburn had 7 of the state's top 10 that came in. And you kind of keep up, okay, well, what is the number 3 guy thinking? What is the number 6 guy thinking? We're writing, and you get to Mario Craver, and you're like, I have no idea. There's no, you can't tell where he's taking a visit. There's no interviews with him anywhere. And then he ends up at Mississippi State. And then, now he's at Texas A&M. And it's just man, I knew he was from Bessemer. That is the only thing I knew about Mario Craver, because there was nothing else about him. And now he's tearing it up at Texas A&M, and both Auburn and Alabama are like, how do we let this guy slip through? I'm like, I don't know.
It has to do with the type of guys you have on your recruiting staff who really know the area. They know the landscape. They have relationships with certain coaching staffs. They're really keeping an eye on those underrated players. And I think a lot of them just slip up because they're too focused on the highly ranked guys that they're trying to keep in state. And I think it was funny. Landon Ross was on our show earlier this year, and Tank.
Anthony Tank Jones.
He said it best. He was like, if he was in Georgia, he'd be at A&M right now, because of the way they dominated that state.
It's crazy how that logic works.
So weird. And he's right, though, because I guarantee he would have committed to A&M if he was a Georgia kid, because they would have recruited him so early. They would have been on him the entire time. It just has to be that he's from Alabama. He was supposed to go to Alabama. Obviously, it's not the same with Caleb DeBoer compared to when Nick Saban was there. And Oregon offered, obviously, a pretty good package. They have a background with guys like Kayvon Thibodeau and others that have come out of there as pass rushers. But that's the weird thing about recruiting. I mean, it's really a fascinating beast, and it's going to get even weirder in the NIL age and everything else. And that's why every time I see somebody say, well, it's just about money, right? Every time I'm like, sure, but you can say that about everybody now. And the thing about Craver and Concepcion, I think a lot of people are still going, well, why didn't they go to A&M, right? They could have gone anywhere. They could have gone to Alabama. They could have gone to Georgia, for example. Okay, well, Noah Thomas transferred to Georgia. He's not being used the way he probably wants to be used right now, and that's a whole different story. I mean, I wouldn't ever talk illy of him, but it is interesting, right? He's just not – because I think he'd be a perfect fit in what they're doing right now. If he would have stayed, he would have been their ex, and then you'd spread this thing out. And there's a pass, for example, during the Notre Dame game, Marcel Reed threw an interception. You have Noah Thomas there with that 6'5" frame. That's probably not an interception. That's probably a catch. So it is interesting how some guys choose to leave for various reasons. They go to other programs. It doesn't work out. Some guys choose, like Craver and Concepcion, they go to their first route. It did work out for Concepcion. He was their main weapon at NC State. For Craver, it was kind of like, I don't trust the quarterback play here. I don't trust they're going to recruit the guys that are going to give me success here. And I'm not saying that's the case. He could have been, but they believed in Marcel Reed more than anybody. And now look what's happening. So I think trust the football guys. That's how I kind of look at it. Trust the players, and that's the biggest thing about how we'll end the show is that I think when Concepcion basically said, I went to a practice, Mike Elko invited me to one. I'm watching Marcel Reed throw. I'm like, damn, this kid can throw it. And I can see myself in this offense. Trust what those guys tell you. It's not just us or anybody else saying, well, I heard through the grapevine. So it is interesting why these guys choose these schools now. I just don't think it's all about money. I think it's for various reasons, but I think they have so many opportunities now to look at every program. And that's what we've said on the show. If a guy, if one of A&M's current commits goes and visits somewhere else, KJ Edwards, their current running back commit, visited LSU recently, do I blame him for doing that? No. You know why? Because they're making him the number one priority. And if you've got LSU, this prestigious program, calling you going, you are our number one guy. We love you. We're going to do this. You're going to be this, blah, 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 blah. Why wouldn't he visit? I mean, it just makes sense. So I never give those kids flack at all. And yeah, it's just going to get more chaotic, but I mean, that's what makes our job fun. I'm going to be honest with you.
It makes it super fun. Well,
right.
Yeah, so we'll sign off here. Yeah, thanks again, Taylor. That was awesome. I think we got a lot of good stuff in. I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be interesting, just based on all the storylines we presented. I mean, you could call it the Cam Coleman Bowl if you want, because I think Cam Coleman's going to be a big part of this game. I think he's going to make a couple spectacular throws where A&M fans are just like, oh, man, what could have been, type of deal. And I mean, we all do that besides players. Like I do.
Hey, to be fair, in the state of Alabama that year, there were two giant wide receivers coming out of Alabama.
Yeah.
Cam Coleman.
And the big pick that year was it was going to be the Freeze Five. It was going to be Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane, Malcolm Simmons, and Ryan Williams. That was the Freeze Five.
Yeah.
And Ryan Williams, of course, goes to Alabama. So now it's just the Freeze Four. And, at least two of them are doing a great job right now. We haven't seen really Perry Thompson take off yet. Bryce Kane is starting to get more snaps this year. But, what Cam said, what might have been for us, too. It's all involves Cam Coleman and Ryan Williams.
Yeah, because, I'll never know why. And that was the end of the Jimbo Fisher era. I'll never know what really happened there. I've heard things. But at the same time, I think it's just one of those situations where Jimbo had recruited him since like the 9th grade. They had this really great relationship. But at the same time, I think these kids do see Auburn as this program that under Gus Malzahn, what they did and all they achieved and the offense they ran. I get Hugh Freeze and Gus Malzahn, but he's supposed to be in that same type of hierarchy of offensive minds. And I get it. I mean, Auburn is one of those classic football programs that you always look at as it is disappointing, like we said, that they haven't lived up to those standards in a while. But I would never hate on a recruit for choosing Auburn. But either way, again, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You can obviously we're on every Tuesday night. We'll be reviewing this game next Tuesday, whether A&M wins or loses. We will talk more about the 9-game schedule that actually came out tonight. We'll go into more in-depth analysis about that. So as always, you can follow me at Cameron Honesty. You can follow Cannon at Torres Cannon on X. Taylor, I don't think you and I are both not that very active on X. I'm going to be honest with you. You could follow both of us. At the College Wires, me, obviously, at Aggies Wire, put out a lot of good stuff this week. We'll have our staff predictions out by Friday morning, and just a lot of get some of those Hugh Freeze classic quotes. I always love those. Right. Yeah, I forget what he said the other day. What he said, A&M is better than Oklahoma. I think he does that every year.
Yeah, they're more complete. More
complete. Which maybe. I mean, I could maybe agree with him on that, but he's great to listen to. But either way, again, I'll just end it with, I think all three of us kind of think A&M's going to win this game, but I'm just still not 100%. I just think it's one of those SEC openers, which I think it does matter. But I will say, I think if A&M wins this game, I think they are going to win their next two, and then we're going to hit that road, that 3-game road test, which is going to define their season. So it's a big one. That's all I'm going to say. But okay, guys, we'll see you next Tuesday. Always gig 'em, and have a good night.